Hey everyone, Wandering Bard here, and a while ago I made a video that was a tier list of every single character from Final Fantasy Type-0 ranked on how useful they were in combat. And that video was a lot of fun to make. I got a lot of comments on it, and some of you guys even shared your own tier list, which I thought was really cool. So I've read your comments, and since then I actually have played the game a second time in preparation for another video. So I want to take this opportunity now that I have some more perspective on some of these characters to do another tier list. So hopefully a more rounded one than my first experience was. So this is again based mainly on my experience playing. If you guys have a different opinion, drop it in the comments. I love reading you guys' input. So walking through the tiers again, S tier is for characters who are basically one-man armies. A tier is for characters who aren't that level of broken but who are still really just ubiquitously useful. B tier is for characters who are useful in some situations but really fall off in others. C tier is for characters who are kind of mid, and D is for characters who are just kind of bad. There's no F tier in this one. I don't think any character really deserves F tier, but there is this new purgatory tier, which I'm going to explain as it comes up. So starting off with Ace, and this one's pretty easy. Ace is absolutely still going to be in S tier. I pretty much made S tier for Ace when I was doing my first playthrough because he has free HP and MP recovery with his cards. He can be an insanely efficient unit without ever having to switch off of him and not having to use any items. Like legit, pretty early in this playthrough I went into the combat simulator with Ace and fought for like 9.5 minutes, never got really close to dying. And by the end of that 9.5 minutes, I was still at high HP and MP without even using an item. I stopped that simulation because I got bored. He's that broken. Like, I had to consciously remind myself to not overuse Ace and make sure I trained up the rest of my guys, because he could honestly clear through large portions of the game just by himself. He's an insanely good unit, and he is the character that I made S tier for. Easy inclusion there. So up next is Deuce. Deuce is a character that I didn't use enough in my first playthrough. I never really figured out her combat style until the very final boss fight where you have to use every character. And honestly, I kind of wish I had used her more my first time because she is the game's bard. So I made sure to use her a lot in the second playthrough. She's actually really interesting. Her attack style very much is, for the most part, you just target an enemy, hold the attack button, and watch your musical notes move toward the character. The slow movement of her attacks doesn't really hurt her except in really fringe situations, like if you have to hit something that's moving really fast, or there was this one expert trial where I had to shoot down an airship using a ranged attack, and Deuce's attacks are too slow to do that. But for the most part, the slow movement of her attacks doesn't hurt her very much, and against like melee foes, it's not a problem. You can also do like a close burst melee attack with her flute if you want to hit things that are near you. The issue that can come in with her attacks is that there's a bit of startup lag on them. She has to lift the flute to her mouth and begin playing for her attacks to do anything. So there is potential for you to kind of get stun locked if you just keep mashing attack and keep getting hit over and over, so you do have to be careful with her. But what I really found about Deuce is that she has really amazing utility options. Her Concerto ability is pretty nice. It basically forces the AI units to become useful and gives them a power boost. But even more important, her Hymn of Healing ability is actually insane. It's basically free party-wide healing. It depletes her ability gauge, but I pretty much never ran out of Hymn of Healing. Like, the rate at which I used it never outpaced my ability to recharge the ability gauge. So it's basically free, infinite, full party heal, which is absolutely bonkers. There was this one Code Crimson mission especially where I was struggling a lot with the combat, mainly because I didn't have some of my better units with me, because it's the one where you have to split the party. And Deuce's Hymn of Healing is the main reason I was able to survive that mission. It's an absolutely insane ability. So that does leave me wondering, like, where do I put Deuce? Because her attacks, having as much startup lag as they do, would normally make me want to put her in like B tier or even C tier. But I also know that if she even had moderately better attack power, she'd be up in S tier with Ace because Hymn of Healing is so broken. So I'm going to personally put her in A tier because she has a lot of amazing utility and she's really good all around. Her attacks are just bad enough to keep her out of S tier, in my opinion. Trey. Trey's an easy one. He's definitely still A tier. He's always going to be the character that carried the fight against that spider robot in my very first playthrough. He also is just a really amazing unit. He hits things hard, he hits at a distance. You can use wall to stop people from shooting back at you, and you can use firewall in conjunction with that to stop people from approaching you. It's just a really amazing unit that's really useful in every situation, basically. Cater. So I put Cater in B tier in my first playthrough. She was useful for me in a couple of fights where, like, there are enemies where you only are really able to damage them via weak point strikes, like Gilgamesh, Brianak. There's this one Code Crimson enemy as well who's like that. Cater is really good for those, and so I put her in B tier because she's great in those fights, but her attacks are pretty weak elsewhere. I have since changed my opinion. She's absolutely A tier. The fact that she can move as fast as she does and shoot as fast as she does, it ends up not mattering that she doesn't hit very hard because she can get so many attacks off and she basically never dies. You can dodge and shoot with impunity. It's honestly amazing. I was in one mission in my second playthrough where I had to pick something up off the ground, but for some reason I couldn't find it. I couldn't find this thing. And so behemoth mechs kept coming out and attacking me, and I was just stuck trying to fend them off and get this thing off the ground. And having Cater be able to move so fast and hit so many times and hit kill strikes really easily was a godsend during that mission. She is absolutely A tier. And honestly, like, she also just has really good coverage with elementality. It doesn't matter that she can't hit very hard, again, because she hits so often. Definitely A tier. I know that means 4 top tiers in a row. I promise we're going to be coming up on, like, more variety real soon. Starting, honestly, with my next character, my most hated one, Cinque. So I am going to say, though, like, I put her in F tier last time, partly as a joke, but genuinely I think she is a bad unit. Like, I talk about Deuce being slow, but at least Deuce hits at a distance. Cinque hits almost entirely melee range, and she's so slow. Both her movement and her attacks are so freaking slow, it feels almost impossible to use her. That said, the reason I didn't put her in F tier, she does have one really interesting thing going for her, which is that her attacks do hit very hard. That's like her whole character. Her whole thing for choosing a hammer was you may as well hit him super duper hard, and she definitely delivers on that. She also has, like, shockwave effects on her attacks, so against some bigger enemies where I'd normally do Cater's avoid and evade strategy, Cinque is actually strong enough to knock them off balance, which I would never have thought about because, again, I don't use Cinque. So I don't think she's an irredeemably F tier character, but I do think the cons very much outweigh the pros for me. She's really slow. She's just way too slow and way too limited on range except with her shockwave moves to be really all that useful in my opinion. But she's not irredeemably bad. Sice is still D tier. Unfortunately, there's no getting around the fact for me that Sice's attacks do a much better job at hitting all the space around my opponent and not hitting my opponent. Sice fans in the comments, this isn't me being snarky, I genuinely want to know, please tell me how you use this character because I am genuinely pretty curious. Like, please help me understand because I can't figure out how to hit things properly with her. 7 is B tier. I think that my opinion of her hasn't really changed since my first playthrough. She's not broken enough to be an A tier or S tier, but she's a really solid all-around unit, solid range, ability to drain HP or pull foes in is really useful. She can swipe all around her to hit multiple foes, so you can target on just one if she needs to. Just a really solid all-around character who I always love having in the fight. So just not quite strong enough to be A tier or S tier in my opinion, but really good unit, great utility, B tier for sure. 8. So in my first tier list, I put 8 in C tier because he's basically Cater but worse is my take on him. I'm going to amend my opinion. He's Cater but much worse. I cannot understand how people are able to hit things with this guy. He has 0 range. I can be in front of something with this character and not hit it. It's honestly kind of insane. I'm so tempted to just put him in D tier because I can't figure this guy out, but I also know that, like, he has his stances, he has combos that he can do that I never figured out. I feel like there has to be more to this character that I just haven't figured out, some kind of untapped potential. So for that reason, I'm putting him in purgatory tier. I can't rank him because I feel like there's gotta be more to him that I just have not figured out yet. So please, 8 fans, if you know how to use this character, please tell me, because I genuinely have no idea, but I feel like there's got to be something I've missed, some kind of potential I haven't found yet. 9. 9 is in C tier for me. He's always the character that I want to get more use out of than I actually do. He hits really hard. He's a very strong attacker, and his jump attack especially does a ton of damage. He has some utility with his White Knight ability, but I've never really seen how that functions. But he dies very easily. He can't dodge very well. He's very much a volatile unit, so you can get some great use out of him, or he can just die instantly. So I think he goes in C tier. He's kind of middle of the road. He could be great, he could be terrible. It depends on how you do. Jack. Okay, so in my first video, I actually put Jack in D tier in my first video. I recognized even back then he does a ton of damage, but he moves very weirdly. He's hard to move with, and so I put him in low tier for that reason, because I did not like using him. I got so many comments from people that were like, Jack is S tier, just get used to the movement. And so eventually during my second playthrough, I realized, wait, I haven't played Jack yet. I've got to fix that. So I did find a few things. He does, as I said, hit very hard. His Lightning Flash ability is really useful for getting a ton of strikes in at once. You can fell enemies pretty quickly with them. And I also found that he only moves weirdly when his sword is drawn. You can sheath your sword at any time, even during battle, so you can actually move pretty reliably if you get used to sheathing and unsheathing your weapon. That said, he's held back by limited range. Like, he can use fire magic, and he can refill MP with ethers if he has to, but if I was ranking every character by how they did with items, all of them would be high tier, except, like, these two. So, I feel like I don't think he's D tier. He's very strong, he's very useful, but I'm gonna put him in B tier instead of A or S because, again, B tier is for the one-trick ponies, and I think Jack is the one-trick pony. He hits really hard with a sword, and that's it really. He can't hit at a range. Anything that flies he's helpless against except with limited magic, but on things on the ground, he's top tier. So he's the one-trick pony, so I'm putting him in B tier. I think that's a much fairer ranking of him than I gave him before. Queen. So Queen is interesting. When I did my second playthrough, I was playing on officer difficulty, so that my characters would be at level for like Code Crimson missions or expert trials. But that meant I didn't have to level grind very much, so I didn't unlock many new abilities. So the main abilities I have for Queen are hit a bunch of times with her sword, so it's a worse version of what Jack can do, and Divine Judgment, which is a fine ability. It's like a giant corona of light that heals allies and hurts enemies. The problem is unflinching is a myth, and so I never was able to kill anything before she get knocked out of the ability, and it has a fair bit of startup lag, kind of like how Deuce's attacks do. So it's not super useful. I know though that there's more abilities Queen has that are good, including one where she kind of goes into berserk mode. I've heard about this, but I never unlocked it, so I don't really know much about it. So I was going to put her down to C tier because I don't think I got as much use out of her in this playthrough, but I know that there's more abilities I never found for Queen, so she's going in purgatory tier because I know she has untapped potential that I never found. So I want to see more of what she can do. King. King is still C tier. He's still very much Trey, but worse. He can do attacks more quickly, but they don't do as much damage. And he eventually has to reload, and when he's reloading, he's super vulnerable. Same for if I do like his Endless Waltz attack, where he shoots a bunch of times at once. He gets to a point where he has a bit of end lag, he can't dodge very easily. He always ends up vulnerable. And so while he has great usefulness for being able to hit at a distance, he also has a pretty significant drawback that puts him into C tier for me. Rem is a character who's honestly really, really solid. She has an ability called Man Alchemy, which is free party-wide MP recovery, so similar to Deuce's Hymn of Healing, but for MP. And unlike Deuce, though, she has really good attack power. Her knives come out really fast, she can dodge pretty easily. She can hit kill strikes for weak point strikes pretty easily. She doesn't have any range, but she is the most powerful magician in the game. And again, she has infinite MP recovery, so she basically has range off of her magic. The only drawback that I've found with Rem is that she can be kind of frail. Her HP and her defenses are low. But you can honestly compensate for that with the right equipment. You just equip her correctly, give her the avoid spell maybe so that she doesn't take hits very easily. She doesn't get hit as much. And you have a unit who does a ton of damage, hits weak points and kills pretty easily, and no real drawbacks. So for that reason, I'm promoting Rem. I think she is also she's a one-woman army, so I think I'm putting her up with Ace in S tier. I think she actually does deserve that. The only reason I didn't put her in S tier in my first playthrough was because of her frailty, but again, you can compensate for that. So S tier Rem. Machina. So Machina is a really solid all-around unit. He can strike pretty well, he hits reasonably hard, he has good lightning magic. The main thing with Machina is that he has the Cyclone Drive ability, which with a little bit of time can do a ton of damage all at once. So against anything that moves really slow, he's amazing, because he can just whittle their health bars down really efficiently. I don't think he quite deserves A tier though. I put him in A tier last time. I don't think that was correct though. I think he's really good in select circumstances, and he's kind of average in others. So I'm putting him in B tier. He's really great in some situations, and he's kind of just okay in others. So B tier for Machina. Well, B tier for Machina in regular mode. There's one more character I didn't get to do last time, because in this playthrough, I got to do Code Crimson missions. And in Code Crimson missions, you can play as Machina in L'Cie mode, also known as Incognitus. And Incognitus, to the surprise of nobody, is S tier. L'Cie mode basically buffs your defenses to a comical degree, and it gives you free passive HP and MP recovery. And so he basically can't die. It took a foe like Gilgamesh to make L'Cie mode Machina vulnerable, so only another L'Cie can match the power of Incognitus. So L'Cie mode Machina is an amazing beast of a unit, and he belongs in S tier. Really, any L'Cie mode character goes in S tier. You can play as L'Cie mode in, I think, the bad ending of the game, or if you complete the Tower of Agito, but Machina is the only one where you can just naturally get L'Cie mode as part of the main story when you do the second playthrough. So I'm only really putting him in the tier list, but any L'Cie mode character obviously goes in S tier. So here's my tier list. A pretty balanced spread all around. There's a lot of top tier units, which I think is really good. There's a lot of really good characters in this game. Not many that I thought were bad. A couple that I think I want to experiment more with, but honestly, there's a lot of good characters in this game, which really lends itself to what I like about the game, which is that the combat is really good, and any character's style, any player's style can be good for this if you pair it with the right characters. So those are my rankings. Again, this is my opinion based on my experience. Please drop your list in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. And thanks again for watching the first video. If you did watch that one, thanks for watching this one. Your support really does mean an awful lot. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I have another Type-0 video coming out in October that I really want to share with you guys. I hate for you to miss the content. So hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, and until the next video comes out, hope you have a good one. I'll see ya.